Hello lovely SRFC people, welcome to a very special and witchy Beltane edition of the SRFC Lockdown Reading Club. I'm Vic James. And I am the author of Sanctuary, a little witchy murder mystery, police procedural, skullduggery, who done it, why done it, addictive and thrilling book apparently, about murder done in a small New England town that may or may not have been done by magic. So it's set in an alternate version of America in which witchcraft is real and an accepted part of society. So inspiration of this book sprang from many things, but one of the really important ones was when I was in the States making a film about the first 100 days of the new Trump presidency, and who would have thought in this day and age someone who hadn't taken a shine to the new president, namely the singer Lana Del Rey, appeared on Twitter to rally the witches of America to hex the new president, which was remarkable enough in itself, but even more remarkable was the fact that a sinkhole then opened up on the lawn of the White House not that long after. Sort of like a kind of fascinating moment in time. And then sort of over the following years, we saw the birth of the Me Too movement, and the whole debate around believing victims, accusation of historic sex crimes, and the word witch hunt got used quite a lot. Now, often it was used with reference to the men who were accused, but if you sort of looked at some of the behaviour in the press towards the women who were making those accusations, a lot of those seemed to me very clearly to also be of the nature of witch hunts, character assassination. Everything these women sort of did and said was ferociously scrutinised. So that also fed into the world of Sanctuary. Now, obviously, when you're writing a book that's effectively the real world, but just happens to have magic, you are asking readers to buy into that, to believe that, to accept that, yes, here is a world where people drive around in cars and play American football and eat fast food and, throw dinner parties, but it's also a world in which magic is real and witches can do stuff. So I knew that in order for that world to be realistic, I would have to do quite a lot of heavy lifting in creating an atmosphere and a world that felt really believable. So turned out the research for that was rather more enjoyable than I had anticipated, because I was never the cool girl at school who was into tarot cards or anything like that. I didn't have a sort of a personal background in witchcraft, Wicca, paganism, any of those belief systems. But at the same time, I was aware that, for many people today, these are more than just, sort of like quaint behaviours or ideas from history. They are real, sort of like precious beliefs. So I knew that I wanted to get it right, and I wanted to be respectful, and I just also found it really, really fascinating. So I started sort of diving really quite deeply into practices of witchcraft and history. You can see I have some of my books here, everything from thousands of years of historical lore about witchcraft, all the way up to witch history in America up to the present day. I went to sessions with crystals. Look at this beauty. I think this is rather beautifully represents inspiration. Little rainbows glittering in there. So yeah, all of these sorts of ideas that I didn't necessarily believe, but I knew I had to be respectful towards. So here's another one. So many witches at the beginning of casting a spell will clear their space. Now, I hope that my words will cast a spell over you tonight. So here is the first ever, I expect, Super Relaxed Fantasy Club grounding and protection circle. So let's cast that over all of us. I think it's probably quite well needed in a time of pandemic and plague. So there you go. So now we have some boundaries set. Now, one of the most fascinating things that happened to me while I was researching and experiencing Sanctuary was hallucinating while I was in Salem. So that was rather interesting. And no, it wasn't from any illicit substances. I had taken part in a witch's circle, a practice, and there I had acquired this, it's called Over the Hedge, and it is a tincture of wormwood. Yes, so I had ingested some of this. So let's do it now. There should probably be some kind of sort of health disclaimer at this point. I don't know. Don't go randomly just like eating and ingesting wormwood, people. It's poisonous. But this is wormwood in something else, so not toxic. Anyway, so I found this quite inspiring, so maybe you will too. So, with all of that, I think it's time to go on our journey into the magical world of Sanctuary. So, the outline of the story, and this is no spoiler here because he dies on page 1, but a boy dies in the town of Sanctuary. Sarah Fenn is the local witch, and she has a coven of 3 female friends who are not witches but assist her in her magical practice. And what happens is those women have been drawn together in a friendship group by their children, who are all the same age, and they're now teenagers ready to graduate school. So there is an end of year party at which one of the women's son dies in strange circumstances, and his ex-girlfriend happens to be the daughter of the witch. So what soon happens is there is speculation that she has been responsible for his death and that she has caused it by magic. So Harper is the daughter, Sarah is the mother, and Sarah the mother, the witch, has just discovered that her daughter has been accused of this awful death, causing the death of Daniel Whitman, the boy who died at the party. So Sarah has decided to use her own magical techniques to find the answer. There's a cop, Detective Maggie Knight, who is using somewhat more orthodox police methods to try and find the truth of what happened to Daniel. But Sarah decides that she is going to call upon her skills in divination. That article as good as named my daughter as a murderer. The first thing I did was try to reach Harper. She didn't answer the first time I called, or the 10th, or the times in between, so finally I texted, "Stupid story in the Sentinel. Stay where you are. I'm going to do some investigating of my own. I'll never let anyone hurt you. Love you so much, Mom." As much as I need desperately to see my child and hold her and tell her it'll all be okay, I don't want Harper here in Sanctuary, where she'll be harassed and intimidated. I don't want her here where the detective can scoop her up for an interview that'll frame her on the words of Jake Bolt, and I want her away from Abigail and her grief-crazed accusations. That cop, Detective Knight, seems sympathetic, but if this is the direction her investigation is heading, I can't rely on her. I need to find out how Dan died. That magic I sensed at the villa, whose was it? Did it kill him? When I know, I can go to the police and clear Harper of suspicion. My witch's booth hasn't suffered the same fate as the house. It's still neatly closed up, the blinds drawn. I slip down the alley that runs alongside Bridget's grooming salon and unlatch the yard gate. My cat Ira darts off among the blooms as I check the rain barrel. Chemically treated water from a tap is useless for brewing, and it's even worse for my purpose today, divining. The back door of my workroom is triple secured, as is the door that leads to it from the consulting room at the front. I unfasten the padlock, key in the security code, trace a sigil on the doorframe. Today, I'll lock myself in. Some magic is too fragile to withstand disturbance, and some magic is too dangerous to interrupt. Today's ritual is all about seeing, so I don't switch on the electric lights inside. Instead, I find and trim 4 oil lamps. They're survivors from a time when sanctuary's women set them anxiously on windowsills to light a sailor's way home from sea. I hope they'll light my way to some answers. The chart I've decided upon is at the bottom of the 4th drawer. I can't remember the last time I took it out because I'm not permitted to use it for consultation with clients. It's another legal restriction that we witches have to work under, but for once it's one that I wholeheartedly agree with. All magical practice is slippery, shifting, potentially treacherous, but divination more than most. I let my thoughts settle as I make my preparations. Fear and anxiety, like silt, take time to sink to the bottom of my mind, leaving everything clear and still. From the garden I gather white carnations, and from the locked greenhouse, bittersweet, one of the nightshades. Its purple 5-petaled stars lie in my hands. I'll pluck out and grind the fleshy yellow stamens. These 2 blooms are truth-tellers. From the lowest shelf in my workroom, I take 2 brown glass jars, one of dried cedar bark, the other of mugwort oil. Humble mugwort is one of our oldest aids. It's there in the 9 Herbs charm and elsewhere in the Laknunga. Chinese poems have praised it for more than 2,000 years. I set the jars on my workbench, then fill one of my silver dippers from the barrel outside. My scrying bowl I keep wrapped in linen. It's flawless obsidian and reassuringly heavy in my hands. At the sink, I first rinse it with rainwater, then wipe it all over with mugwort oil, and finally I place a handful of cedar bark in the burner and pass the bowl through the smoke. It's a triple purification. To some, this appears a fiddly business. The occasional skeptic would accuse me of staging ritual to inflate my fees. But it's no more than any other skilled practitioner does. The athlete who stretches, the surgeon who gloves and scrubs. The final instrument to prepare is myself. This requires a tincture of salvia. Here in Connecticut, Salvia divinorum became a Schedule I substance in 2012. Licensed witches have exemption to cultivate and prepare it, but only for personal consumption. The salvia is in the same greenhouse where I grow the nightshades and a dozen more toxic or narcotic plants. I secure the lock once I've cut what I need with silver scissors. Salvia's effects are short-lived, so I make sure everything else is ready before I down the infusion. I trim the lamp wicks. Soon I'll be seeing with the inward eye. I call Ira inside, then close and secure the door. It's time to begin. A witch will only turn to divination in desperation. I'm desperate. Throughout history, practitioners have tried to refine divination techniques. The ritual has countless forms, using objects ranging from bones and tea leaves to clouds and animal guts. Yet divination always requires a question posed by the witch, and it expects an answer yielded by the ritual. Often, though, no answer comes. Despite centuries of magical scholarship, no one knows why. Was the question framed incorrectly, or the witch's mind insufficiently focused? One theory holds that there's always an answer. We're simply incapable of understanding it. But I need an answer today for Harper's sake, so I've considered the question carefully. How did Daniel die? Demands a response that's too complex. Was Daniel's death an accident? Would be useful, but only if the answer is yes. If it's no, then it brings me no closer to what I need to know. So I've hit on what I hope is the right one. In the dim light, I trace my chosen path through the chart. Words, gestures, wiping the bowl again, filling it with rainwater, dabbling my fingers in as I consecrate it to the true sight, letting fall a single drop of oil, which spreads in a shimmering film across the surface, to cleanse perception so that it shows me no lies. I drink the salvia preparation. The effect is almost immediate. The world inverts. All that is real is contained in this bowl. All that is illusory shimmers around me in the lamplight. I feel the brush of Ira's fur at my ankles, and I hear her mew. Familiars are our anchors to the real world, their animal natures closely collected to the earth. They keep us attached to all that is known, all that is familiar. More than once, it has been Ira's gentle presence that has guided me back to myself. The final steps of the chart, those that I've chosen for this divinatory journey, are ready in my head, at my fingertips, and on my tongue. I speak words, shape sigils. And finally, I look into my bottomless bowl and I ask the question, who killed Daniel Whitman at Sailaway Villa? I look and I look. And no answer comes. My eyes dart around. The answer may be heard or felt or seen. But I hear nothing. I feel nothing. I see only my own reflection, shimmering and distorted. Then Ira screams, and my obsidian bowl shatters, and its blank, black depths are the last thing I see as I crumple.